Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage HRSA Branch Chief, Ms. Kimberly Huffman.
This morning's session is called Making a Difference Through Leadership. Many NHSC members find themselves being placed in a position of leadership whether you seek it out or not. Michelle Templin has been providing leadership training to our core members and to our own HRSA staff for many years. She's the president of Get Smart Training based in California, and she's the author of several books, including 5-Star Teamwork. She's worked with many experts in this area, including Dr. Spencer Johnson, author of Who Moved My Cheese, and Dr. Stephen Covey, author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Please welcome Michelle Templin.
All right, hold on. Before I get started, I have to do something real quick. Just hold on. You in the back, just kind of stay focused just for a second there. All right, I think I'm good. I should probably share with you what's going on, huh? Besides going throughout the country and speaking on topics such as leadership, etc., I have another occupation as well. I'm a psychic. Yep, and right now I was reading your minds, and everybody in here was thinking the exact same thing. And here's what you were thinking. She better be good. Right? We've had 2 speakers talking to us, right, for over an hour. I got to go to the bathroom, and she better be good, right? And here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, man, I hope they're good. I hope they're engaged. I hope they laugh at some of the jokes. I hope they want to learn. So for the sake of this very awkward moment that occurs at the beginning of every keynote presentation, can we just assume I'm the very best speaker you've ever had? I'll assume you're the best audience I've ever had. So go ahead, stand up. Let's give each other a standing ovation. Stand up right now. Stand up. Stand up. No, you would stay standing because we've been sitting for a long time. Let's all stretch for a second. Stretch those arms, kind of shake out the head, shake out the shoulders. They've cut my time, so I'm going to go real short, I promise you. But once you get all shooken out or shaked out, or I don't know how you say that, just go ahead and have a seat. We doing all right? Yeah? We're going to get excited now. I'm going to talk to you about making a difference through leadership. Making a difference through leadership. And I know there's a bunch of people here that are saying, man, I don't even think of myself as a leader in my community. I'm not even a supervisor. I'm a dental hygienist or I'm a physician's assistant. What is this, making a difference through leadership? Well, I'm here to tell you that you are a leader if you choose to be. You are a leader in your community if you choose to be. Now, I like to study different leaders throughout history. One of my favorites is this gentleman right here, John Wooden. Now, if you're not familiar with John Wooden, I should tell you that he was coach of the UCLA, most famous for being coach of the UCLA Bruins basketball team. He was their coach for 28 years. During his tenure there, I mean, they won a ridiculous amount, 10 NCAA championships. They held the record for the most wins in a row. I want to say it was 81 or something ridiculous like that. He was voted Coach of the Decade and then voted Coach of the Century by ESPN News. So very prestigious awards and very successful. The interesting thing about John Wooden is he came from very humble beginnings. He was very poor. In fact, he was so poor that his very first basketball was really his mother's pantyhose that they just wrapped and wrapped and wrapped and made into a big ball. And that was his first basketball. His very first hoop was an old apple crate that his dad cut off the bottom and nailed to the family barn. So very humble beginnings. He started off as a high school basketball coach and then was asked to eventually go coach for college and went on and had a very lucrative career, as I said. He has coached some very big egos, but he remains he's a small man, but with very big character, right? So he's worked with folks like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, at that time Lou Alcindor, and Bill Walton. What's cool about him is, although he had very humble beginnings, he went on to care not just about winning basketball games, but making a difference with his players and their character and who they became, and also went on to speak on leadership and did a lot of work on leadership. He developed something called the Pyramid of Success. But here's what I want you to think about. Think about him being a high school basketball coach. And if you had said to him at that time, John, can you go on and be coach of the century? And can you go on and coach some of the best basketball players ever in history? And can you go on to be the best coach ever in history? He would have said, no way. But if you had asked him to coach one player at a time, can you work with this person? Can you help this young man be a better person? He, of course, would have said yes, one step at a time. Now, I also like to study, of course, Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa is known for saying, in this life we cannot always do great things, but we can do small things with great love. And you don't think of Mother Teresa as a leader. However, I don't know if you know this, at the time of her passing, she was overseeing 610 missions in over 120 countries. So quite a leader, actually. And again, if you think about her as a young woman, and if you had said to her, Teresa, can you be the liaison for peace and for caring for this entire world, could you do that? She'd say, no way. But if you had said, can you take care of this one person? Can you lead this one group of small girls? She would have said, of course. And the key is that you do it 1 degree at a time. And I call this philosophy the philosophy of 212. The philosophy of 212. So let me explain what this means, okay? Because at 211 degrees, water's hot, right? At 212 degrees, it boils. And with boiling water comes steam. And with steam, you can power a locomotive. Just 1 degree more, and you get all this extra result, right? And that's what I'm going to ask of you. I'm going to ask you to just take it 1 degree at a time. 1 degree at a time. 1 degree is what makes the difference. So, what distinguishes leaders that go the extra degree? Well, let me start by telling you what doesn't. Let me tell you that desire is never enough of an emotion to change, to make the changes that you need to make in your life or in your organization, right? Desire is not going to cut it. A whole bunch of us desire lots of things. I know for myself, I'd like to be tall, and I'd like to be blonde, and I'd like to, be well endowed, right? But that's not going to happen. So desire doesn't do it for me, right? Desire is not going to do it for you either. In fact, there's a bunch of you that are going to want to make changes when you leave here. And you're going to be so excited when you leave this conference. You're going to have ideas about health fairs, and you're going to work with the Boys and Girls Club, and you want to work with your local church. And you're going to have all these great ideas, right? And you're going to feel a lot like this. You're going to feel like nothing can stop you. You're powerful. You got it. You're rocking and rolling. And you'll be driving into the office on Monday morning, right? And you'll get into the office, and there'll be 32 patients in the waiting room, and you'll have 87 emails there for you, and I don't know, maybe 42 voicemails, and all of a sudden you'll feel a lot like this, right? Oh, yeah. And where's your desire going to be then, right? Where's that desire? I know where it's going to be, in the trash. So desire's not going to cut. You're going to have to make a series of choices. So let's talk about, the choices that you need to make. So the first choice is you have to choose to lead. You have to choose to be a leader. You have to make that choice. You have to get up. You have to, every morning, look yourself in the mirror and say, man, I'm going to make a difference today. I'm going to look at my action plans from that conference, and I'm going to make something happen. I'm not Cruella and Drizella. I'm going to get my butt to the ball, right? I am going to the ball. I'm going to dance. I'm going to marry the prince. I got to choose to lead. I have to choose to lead. This is a choice that you make. Lots of folks are living on Someday Island, as I call it. They think, someday I'll start that health initiative. Someday I'll ask others to help me. Someday I'll get that extra certification. Someday I'll speak up in the meeting with my boss that intimidates me. Someday I'll talk to the church, the school, the youth group. Someday I'll eat healthy. I'll stop drinking the devil's urine, right? You heard that yesterday. Someday I will be a leader. And I'm saying to you, someday's here, man. If not now, when? And if not you, then who? Who's going to do it? If not you, then who? Gandhi said, a man is the sum of his actions, of what he's done, of what he can do, nothing else. Lots of you have lots of intentions, but it's your actions that matter. Leadership isn't a title that's put on your business card. I got to tell you, my mom, she didn't work outside of the home ever. But she was a leader in our community. She was, president of Little League, and she was always on the PTA, and everybody turned to her when there was community decisions because she was a leader in the community. She didn't even have a business card, right? Later today, you're going to meet Dr. Billings. And his wife, I've had the pleasure of meeting. And when you get to hear him, he's just wonderful. But he's supported and backed up by his wife, who is a leader in their community. And she has 3 or 4 kids, and they just have this beautiful family. No leadership title on her business card, but she is certainly a leader because she makes that choice. She chooses to lead. Being a leader is like being a lady. If you have to tell people that you are, then you aren't. We judge ourselves by our intentions, and yet others judge us by our actions. Now think about that. Think about what that means. So in our minds, we think, oh, I meant to be at that meeting on time, right? Oh, I meant to stop by the church and talk to that pastor. Oh, I meant to go by the Boys and Girls Club. And so we justify, well, my intentions were good. I'm a nice person. Hey, man, your intentions don't matter. Your intentions do not matter at all. You should be and are judged by your actions. And you're only going to make a difference if you take action, right? And that's only fair. You judge others by their actions. You don't judge other people by their intentions. If someone goes to, or let's say I want to go to my aunt's funeral, and I'm thinking, oh, I need to go to my aunt's funeral. It's today, and I need to get there, and then I got caught up, and it was busy at work, and I never make it. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I meant to get there, but when I don't show up, what are other folks thinking? They're thinking, I didn't care that much about her. I don't care that much about the family. I'm judged by my actions, just as you are, not by your intentions. There's a lot of really well-intentioned people in this room. I know it. I've met a whole bunch of you. And you're terrific. But you got to take that terrific from here to here, right? You got to take it from your mind and put it in your heart and then put it into action. Take action. Laziness is nothing more than the habit of resting before you get tired. It's time to say, I own it. It's time to say it's mine, right? It's very easy at times like this to say, well, I meant to, but you know what? My boss, well, he should have given me the funding, or, well, the pastor, he should have allowed me to go up on stage and give the injection. And you know what? All of a sudden, you're doing a whole bunch of shouldn't, right? You're shoulding all over the place. You're shoulding on the pastor. You're shoulding on your boss. You're shoulding on your coworkers. And I'm here to tell you, there's no shoulding. No shoulding allowed, right? I said shoulding. Shoulding. No shoulding. It's time to do it. George Washington, the only president who didn't blame the previous administration for its troubles. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No more blame game, right? It's time. It's you. It is you. National Health Service Corps is you. It's time to recognize abundance. And this is where we kind of focus on, the half empty versus the half full, right? I want you to choose to see what's good, what you have at your fingertips, the resources that you have. Don't focus on what you do not have. Focus on what you do have, because you have more than most. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Now, these are pretty profound words. This is a Roman slave. A Roman slave, and he's saying this. Rejoice with what you do have. I'm brought to mind growing up, big Portuguese family, and there were 6 siblings, and we watched a lot of TV. And I can remember one Saturday morning, we were watching TV, of course, like this far from the television. And TV was so exciting back then because cartoons were only on Saturday mornings, and so it was very special. And you were just so excited to sit there and watch it. And all of a sudden, up comes a commercial for Rock'em Sock'em Robots, right? I know you remember these. And if you remember the commercial, the kids were so happy to be playing with the darn Rock'em Sock'em Robots. They were beautiful. Their hair was perfect. They didn't have any pimples. And they just would play, and they were laughing. And they didn't fight like my siblings, like we all did. And they looked so happy, and I wanted one so bad. And so we all decided that we were going to go in and ask my mom for Rock'em Sock'em Robots. We go into the kitchen. My mother, of course, is doing dishes. And we said, Mom, we got to have Rock'em Sock'em Robots. She says, no, it's nobody's birthday. It's not Christmas. You're not getting the Rock'em Sock'em Robots. We said, please, we got to have Rock'em Sock'em Robots. She says, no, you're not getting them. She says, and if I hear one more peep, that's it. You know, you're all going to your room for the entire weekend. And, of course, my brother Mark, it was always Mark, says, I need to have Rock'em Sock'em Robots. You don't understand. It's my life, right? Yep. So we all went to our room, probably for the next week. I can remember being in that room for a very long time. Well, somebody's birthday must have come up because eventually we did go to the store and buy the Rock'em Sock'em Robots. And we had waited so long to get it. We go to the store, and, you know, I can see it on the shelf. It was on the top shelf, and there was like a halo around it, and the white lights coming from it, right? And so we all gently put it into the cart, and we had a little procession going as we walk it to the counter, right? And we get it to the counter, and we move it out to the parking lot, and we put it in the car in our big station wagon, and we figured out what those straps with the buckles on, we figured out what those were for. We had never used them before. We buckled it safely into the back seat. So we get it home, and because I had big older brothers, I didn't go first. They went first because I would have been hit, quite frankly, if I had gone first. So they played for about 10 minutes. It looked kind of fun. And then my 2 sisters, they played for about 10 minutes. It looked pretty cool. And then my little brother and I, we got up, we played for about 5 minutes, and we looked at each other, and we went, what the heck? And we pushed that into the toy closet, and we thought, we wasted weeks mourning and moaning about something that we didn't have, and instead we didn't play with our hula hoops and our roller skates and our basketballs. And my question is, what are you thinking that you need right now that's stopping you from seeing the value in what you already have, right? What is it that you need right now? So think about that, because you have more than most. You have more than most. DeWitt Jones says, celebrate what's right with the world. Celebrate what's right with the world. Ziggy says, you can complain because roses have thorns, or you can rejoice because thorns have roses, right? And then there's this perspective. Yeah. I know. A lot of you have tough jobs. A lot of you have really, really tough jobs. And you can focus on that, or you could think it could be worse. Or you could think, how can I make this better, right? Optimism is a choice. It's a choice that all of us make each and every day. We choose to be optimistic, or we choose not to be. Being optimistic is really powerful. Thinking you're going to succeed is really powerful because your mind is very, very powerful. Happiness is a choice. If the world was scaled down to 100 people, now think about this. So if there were only 100 people, 80 would live in substandard housing. 67 would not be able to read. And we complain because our Kindle doesn't work right. 50 would suffer from malnutrition. 33 wouldn't even have good water supply. 24 would not have electricity. And I can't tell you how often I complain because my internet doesn't work fast enough. 7 would have internet access, and only 1 would have a college education. That puts things in perspective, right? How fortunate we are. We live in the best country in the world, right? We have the most opportunity in the world. Let's make something happen. Let's make something happen. I have this glass of wine up there. Yes, I am a Cabernet drinker, but not for that purpose. I want you to remember it's time to quit whining. Time to quit whining, right? Yeah, give it up. Time to quit whining. It's time to make something happen. Be thankful for your problems, because if they weren't so hard, someone with less ability might just take your job, right? Albert Einstein says, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. You have to believe that solutions exist. Thomas Edison, many of life's failures are men who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Think about that. I mean, the legend has it that, I don't know, he took him 1,000 tries to create the light bulb, right? And when asked about it, he said, I didn't see those attempts as failure. He said, I learned 1,000 ways not to create a light bulb, and that was very rewarding. It's all about perspective. Oprah Winfrey, she says, where there is no struggle, there is no strength. Now, that reminds me of a biosphere that was created in Oracle, Arizona. And in this biosphere, they had the perfect setting. So they had the perfect soil and the perfect plants without any disease. And they had the perfect amount of water. They had the perfect amount of sunlight, right? Everything was perfect. And yet goofy. The trees didn't grow very well, and the plants were all kind of lazing around. And they realized that, you know what? We forgot to put wind. We forgot to put wind, and it's the wind, and it's the struggle against the wind that makes the plants strong, right? Well, that's just like you. One scientist was quoted as saying, apparently, because there was no wind within the biosphere, the trees became very flabby and weak and tended to flop about the place like teenagers on a sofa. A wind-blown tree is a tough, strong tree, right? You're tough and you're strong because you've been through a lot. You're ready for this. You're ready to take on the challenge. And finally, the last choice that you have to make is that you have to choose to change. You have to choose to change. To get what we've never had, we must do what we've never done. You have to choose to change, and I know it's hard. You get stuck in your comfort zone, but you have to choose to change. So what's preventing you from making the changes that need to be made? Maybe there's a little bit of fear, right? Thank you for that sound cue, by the way. That was perfect. Maybe there's just a little bit of fear. Maybe there's a little bit of fear, but you know what? Fear can work for you. It can work on your behalf. In fact, if I ask you this question, how many of you are afraid of change? Let me see a show of hands. How many of you are afraid of change? How many of you? Okay, quite a few of you. Okay, so let me ask you this question. Maybe I need to just rephrase this question just a teeny bit. How many of you are afraid of change? Maybe I need to change that question. Maybe it's that one word. So let me switch it up. Let me ask you, how many of you think other people are afraid of change? Yeah, always. All the hands go up there, right? So I want you to use change to work for you, or use fear to work for you. Fear can work in two ways. One, it can be very motivating. You know, it's motivating. I pay my bills because I'm afraid to get a late charge, right? I don't want to get summoned or someone coming to my door asking for money. So it's motivating. That fear is a good thing. But fear can also be paralyzing, can't it? Sometimes we're so afraid because we're afraid of what might happen. We're so afraid to make that call to the local Boys and Girls Club because we might get turned down. Or we're so afraid to call the minister because we heard he was kind of rough and he likes to sleep in on Friday mornings. And so, that fear can be very paralyzing. I want you to use fear to motivate you. Because think about what's going to happen if folks like you don't take action. It's time for you to choose to change. Leaders are visionaries with poorly developed sense of fear, says Dr. Jarvik, right? So how do you see change coming? You have to anticipate it. You got to get better at anticipating what's coming next, right? You have to be better at seeing what's next. That's how you get better in dealing with the changes that are upcoming. Once you get better at anticipating. Wayne Gretzky says, I skate to where the puck is going to be. Now think about that. Wayne Gretzky, when he was out on the ice, and everybody else is looking at where the puck is right now. And you know what he's thinking? He's thinking, I don't care where it is now. I got to think, okay, John's got it. He's going to hit it to Harry. Harry's going to hit it to Joe. Joe's going to hit it to Bill. And I want to be right there so that Bill can get it to me. I got to anticipate. I got to be a visionary, right? I skate to where the puck is going to be. Where's your puck going to be? Think about this. Think about fear in just a different way. What were you afraid of when you were 5 or 6 years old? Most of the time when I ask that question, folks will tell me things like, I was afraid of the dark. Or I was afraid of, sometimes folks tell me, my dad used to come out with a belt. Or, I was afraid of my older brother or the alligators under my bed. And all of those things, most of the time, were made up in my head, right? I was afraid of the boogeyman in the dark. And most of your fears right now about taking action, about doing something different, most of your fears are just made up in your head. Overcome your fears. Be motivated by the fear of what happens if you do nothing. Dr. Johnson says, what would you do if you weren't afraid? What would you do if you weren't afraid? Now that's an inspiring thought. Wayne Gretzky also says, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. Think about it. It's scary to take a shot, but you can't score a goal unless you take a shot. It's time to get there. It's time to take a shot. King Whitney Jr. says, change. To the fearful, it is threatening, because it means that things may get worse. To the hopeful, it's encouraging, because things may get better. But to the confident, it's inspiring, because the challenge exists to make things better. Jack Welch says, a leader's job is to look into the future and see the organization, not as it is, but as it should be. That's your job. That's your challenge. Be the leader in your community. Be the leader in your community. And with that, I'd like to just close by saying the National Health Service Corps is not a pin on your lapel, and it's not the little emblem on your bag, and it's not Dr. Wakefield, and it's not, and I love the National Health Service Corps staff and Becky Spitzko. It's not them, it's you. It's you. It's nothing without you, right? So, let me close with a little story. All right, I told you I grew up in Southern California, big Portuguese family, and my grandparents were from Portugal and always carried, never lost their Portuguese accent. And my grandfather, who was known as Ismael, my grandmother was known as Julia, and he was very romantic. And so one night, they're sitting out at the porch and looking over the San Diego Bay. It's very romantic. The stars are out. And they're rocking back and forth and back and forth. And my grandfather turns to my grandmother. He says, Julia, if I had 1,000 eyes, they'd all be looking right at you. Right? And my grandmother says, oh, Ishmael, you're so sweet. You're so kind. And they continue rocking back and forth and back and forth. And again, my grandfather, so overcome with emotion for my grandmother, says, Julia, if I had 1,000 arms, they'd all be holding you. And my grandmother turns to him and says, oh, Ishmael, you're so good to your Julia, right? And they continue rocking back and forth and back and forth. And this time my grandfather, he's so overcome with emotion, he can't help himself. He says, Julia, If I had 1,000 lips, they'd all be kissing you. Now this time, my grandmother stops the rocking. She said, Ishmael, I wish you'd quit talking about what you can't do with the things you don't have and get busy doing something with what you do have. Right? God bless you. Thank you very much.